Welcome to Simple Wonders, where I help you simplify home education so you can work wonders in your home. I'm Jessica, a homeschooling mom of 4 boys, here to guide you through the first steps of starting your homeschool journey. In this series, you'll learn how to get started, what you actually need to homeschool, and you'll develop real teaching skills, even if you've never taught a day in your life. I'm so excited to be on this journey with you. Let's get started. On week 5 of my How to Homeschool series, but this is video number 3. This is all about discipline. So if you haven't watched my previous videos, I highly recommend watching those, especially the videos from this week where I introduce the 3 educational instruments, which are atmosphere, discipline, and life. And this one is the second instrument where I talk about discipline. Now, just as a review, as a recap, discipline means that we are forming habits thoughtfully and purposefully. So when you hear the words discipline, probably think of a one-room schoolhouse where children come up in their classes or their rows and they recite a lesson that they've memorized, and if they don't do it correctly, then the teacher swats them on the bottom with a stick or swats their hand because they didn't learn their lesson. That's kind of what I think of when I think of discipline or punishment. But discipline is so much more than that. It is, again, it's thoughtful, intentional skill acquisition. So we're teaching our children skills, we're teaching them habits, and we want to teach them good habits. So let's go a little bit more in depth in this, and I'm going to teach you more about how the human mind learns. And by the way, when I say habits and skills, I know there's a difference between the two, but the way that you gain habits and skills are very similar, especially in education. Now they're skills, but then they can become a habit. And so I'm going to use them kind of interchangeably, but just so you know, I know what a skill is. It's something that you can do. It's something you have acquired. And then a habit is something in your mind that you don't have to think about. It just happens automatically. So just want to put that out there. So before you can really understand mental habits and skills, we need to understand how the mind works. So the mind has the working memory, the short-term memory. This is what we're using all the time. This is what I'm using right now to try to remember all of this script because I don't use a teleprompter. So my working memory is pretty overloaded right now. So the working memory is what we're doing right now, and it's trying to keep everything in balancing it, trying to keep everything on top of your mind. And it has a certain max capacity. It gets overworked, and then you get stressed. You have some mental breakdowns, or you just shut down and your brain turns off and starts getting distracted and thinking about different things. So that is your working memory. Then you have your long-term memory. Now this is where things that you have learned get put after you sleep. That's where it's going to be put into storage so you can use it later. Now, think about when you need that knowledge again. Your brain uses a neural pathway to go down and get that knowledge, like 7 times 9. It goes down and retrieves it back up. So it's not in your working memory. It is now in your long-term memory. The more often that your brain goes and retrieves that knowledge, the stronger the pathway. Now, your brain likes to keep your working memory pretty empty. Doesn't like to think too hard. Now, all of this that I've learned, I'm talking about, are from quite a few books on cognitive science and learning. This one in particular is Why Don't Students Like School by Daniel Willingham. He just talks about how the brain works and how we can apply this in learning. And he said that the brain really doesn't like to think too hard. It likes to make things habits so that it can keep its working memory empty, to be aware of what's going on around it, to be thinking about what it's doing. Think about it when you're driving a car. You are doing everything habitually. You're turning on the blinker. You are stopping when you see another car stopping. You don't have to think about it, so that your mind can be free to think about what you need to get at the grocery store, or you can try to help your children work through a disagreement that they have in the back seat and be talking to them or someone else in the passenger seat. So your brain likes to make things easy. It could consider it lazy in that way. It doesn't like to think too hard. So it tries to make things habitual. When your mind goes down into the depths of your long-term storage to retrieve knowledge, it is creating a strong pathway and it's becoming a habit. So when we have foundational skills, like memorizing our multiplication tables, when we memorize how words are spelled. Those are foundational skills that have become habit. We don't have to think about them. We don't have to clutter up our working memory to remember what 6 times 7 is by going, okay, 6 and then 12 and 18. That's a lot of working memory. When we create those foundational skills into habits, our children can move on to more advanced skills. So they can do long division because multiplication has become a foundational habit for them. It's easy. They've gone down into their long-term memory so many times, it's become a habit to know what 6 times 7 is, so they can complete their long division task easily. When their working memory is free, it's less stressful. It is easy for them and it is rewarding for them. Their brain likes it. And we want to keep our children's working memory fairly free so it doesn't become frustrating, it's not anxiety inducing, and they don't become overwhelmed and have a meltdown. That is why it is so important to have to do discipline as part of your school, to make those foundational skills a habit, so that the next level, so this is the foundational skills in our pyramid, so that the next thing that we learn is going to be easily laid on top of that. There's no cracks, there's no missing blocks in that foundation, and we can keep building on that. So that is really, in a nutshell, how the mind learns and why habits are so integral to learning and to be successful in school and to move on to those advanced thinking skills. So how do you turn these foundational skills into a habit? So I'm going to give you a quick habit 101 as regards to teaching and education and instilling those foundational skills. So first, make sure it's perfect practice. Now, you've heard the term practice makes perfect, but you probably also heard the term perfect practice makes perfect. So if you're practicing the wrong thing over and over again, it's becoming a habit and you're going to play it wrong when the time comes to play it at a recital. Or if you're doing sloppy handwriting over and over again, there's no use in practicing handwriting if it's going to be wrong. So you want to make sure it's perfect execution. That sometimes requires you to break it down a little smaller, which brings me to my second point, which is small but simple. So I love the scripture, by small and simple things are great things brought to pass. I feel like this was God's first instruction in habit training. So just start small. So going back to the handwriting example, instead of saying, all right, you need to do a whole page of handwriting, your child's hand is going to get tired and they're going to get sloppy. Then they're going to get in a habit of handwriting. Their handwriting's going to get sloppy because they've done it sloppy so many times. Break it down and say, I want you to do 3 perfect capital A's, 3 perfect A's. That's it for today. Or even break it down even more. I just want you to do 6 lines, 6 straight horizontal or vertical lines. Or curves. I just want you to do curves or circles, right? Just break it down and have them get down to that foundation and get really good at it. It's a habit to do straight lines within the lined paper. So start small. This is so important with habit training. If you do too big of a thing, then they're going to do it wrong, they're going to do it sloppy, and they're going to get overwhelmed, that working memory. So start small, break it down. And this is why I recommend short lessons for school. I'm talking so short that you may think, no, that's not going to work. But please trust the process. For elementary school, I start with 5 to 10 minute lessons a day. So my elementary school students, at least first graders, are done in an hour. Now, I'm going to talk more about short lessons and how to implement those and hopefully give you some faith to trust the process and do it. But short lessons, short, easy, break things down so that those things become habit. And it's easy for your child to do it. If something is not easy, it will not become a habit. And again, that's from the Atomic Habits book. It needs to be broken down in small things. So habits are like rails in your brain. The more you've used it, or it could be ruts or roads, the more you've used it, the more easily you can go that way. And so you want to lay those rails down and you want to use them a lot. Now this is, in cognitive science, is called retrieval, when you go down into your long-term memory and retrieve knowledge that you've learned in the past. Now, Charlotte Mason called it narration, is when she, and something similar, I wouldn't say it's the same thing, but retrieving knowledge. going back into your memory and bringing it out. Now, narration's a little bit more advanced where you're saying, okay, tell me about this. So they're going to have to tell, about the events that led up to the Civil War, or explain what happened in their chapter in their book. And they're very similar though. Retrieving is where you're going back and getting knowledge, whether it's an hour after your lesson or 2 months after your lesson. The more you retrieve, the more you're going to get those strong neural connections. It's going to be easier to bring that up, and it's going to keep your working memory clear. Now, you can use retrieval for everything. You can retrieve historical facts or ideas. You can retrieve math facts. You can retrieve science formulas or math formulas. You can retrieve stories that they've read, a month ago, maybe even a year ago, scripture stories. You can use retrieval for anything. Now, there have been a lot of studies that have been done on how often you should do this. Something that's really interesting that we tend to think that forgetting is a bad thing, but forgetting is actually good. You need to space out some time in between your lesson and retrieving. It's going to work even better. The harder your brain has to work to get that knowledge, the better it will remember it next time. And the more you do it, the more it's going to remember. So forgetting, or spacing is what it's called, spacing that retrieval, is really important for learning. And just remember that. So you can ask your child to retrieve right after a lesson. Okay, I want you to explain in your own words how to do this math problem, or make up your own math problem. Use these things that we've learned, this formula, to make your own story problem. Or next week, the week after you have the lesson, you can ask your child, hey, I want you to tell me 2 things that you learned about from the Civil War or the Battle of Gettysburg. Just having them space out those. And then at the end of the term, the 3 months, say, okay, I want you to tell me everything you remember about the Civil War. So it could be, 2 to 3 months after they've learned about the Civil War and they're being asked to retrieve it. Then at the end of the year, you could say, I want you to compare the Civil War with World War I. And so they're going to have to use those retrieval skills to compare those two. Super, super important. It's probably the most important tool that you can have in your teacher's tool belt. Now, the other ones I'm going to talk about are really important, don't get me wrong, but this one is going to give you the most bang for your buck. So I already talked a little bit about how you can use retrieval, but I'm going to go a little more into detail. So I spend 5 to 10 minutes of every lesson of every day going over things that we've already learned. We get so focused on cramming new things into our child's mind, and we don't spend a lot of time retrieving past knowledge. This is so important, and this is just, without question, the most important idea that I got out of all of the cognitive science books that I read. Number 1, we need to stop trying to cram so much, and we do need to spend more time retrieving knowledge that they've already learned. So I spend 5 to 10 minutes where I ask them things like, tell me what you learned about in your reading today. Tell me what you remember from our lesson last week. Or you could say, tell me what you remember, or tell me what you learned yesterday. Tell me 2 things you remember about blank. It could be Civil War, it could be cells, it could be Africa, or Ethiopia, or the culture of Ethiopia, whatever it is. And you could do brain dump. Write down everything you remember about blank. Give your child a variety of math problems of topics that they've learned in the past. So that would be interleaving as well as retrieving. So every day we do math review to help them not forget those things and to continue to make those neural pathways to the different problems and variety of ways to solve those problems. Charlotte Mason said that the most important habit for school success is the habit of attention. The habit of attention is so important. But how do you get your child to pay attention? The biggest thing, the secret, is to start with short lessons. Because I can guarantee if your child has had 45-minute lessons or longer at school, in elementary school, they have learned to daydream. This is because the longest a human can really pay attention is about 20 minutes. Full on undivided attention without distractions, 20 minutes. Our average attention span, don't freak out here, 8 seconds. 8 seconds is the average attention span of the human right now. Now it's gone down with digital devices and things that we use, especially like TikTok and all of these reels that are, 3-second views at a time. So your child at 6 years old is not going to be paying attention for 30 minutes. And if they have been expected to do that at school or have lessons, they have learned a bad habit of inattention. They'll start to wiggle, they'll start to try to distract, they'll be sloppy, or they'll daydream, or whatever it is. So start with the amount of minutes your child is in age. So if you have a 6-year-old, try 6 minutes. If you have a 10-year-old, try 10 minutes. And if they do well, then move it up until you find that sweet spot. And your goal is to get them to move up to 20 to 30 minutes of lesson time in middle school and high school, maybe even more, but you have to start small. And as soon as you see them getting distracted, end and move on to a different subject. Because, and this is just at the beginning, because you don't want them to get in the habit of, my mind's bored, I'm going to get distracted, or I'm going to daydream. You want them to get in the habit of paying attention for the full amount of time on the timer. I recommend getting visual timers. A link will be in the description box below. But having a visual timer, okay, only 1 minute. All you're gonna do is 1 minute of handwriting. And then the next day or the next week, move it up to 2 minutes. Keep moving it up until you find that sweet spot of, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Now, you may be thinking, I don't think my child can pay attention. They're gonna, we need to have a 30-minute lesson, but I can guarantee you will get more done in 5 minutes than 30 minutes if your child gives the lesson their full attention, and you won't be wasting your time or their time. I have not had any of my children say, I'd rather spend 30 minutes. Just tell them all we're gonna be doing is 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, however long it is, and we are just going to be focusing for that entire time, and then you're done. My children are so grateful for that, and they are so grateful for their visual timers that they can just see, I'm almost done. I need to keep going. And they have all tested in the 90th percentile, around 90, 80, 90 percentile in the state for state testing, despite us doing a small fraction of the amount of time that kids do at public school. So just have faith in the process. And remember that by small and simple things are great things brought to pass. And that you need to do retrieval with all of your subjects. Ask your child to retrieve that knowledge, and don't load up their working memory. Make sure that those foundational skills become a habit. So that is all I have for you today. It's probably the longest one, but it's the most, in my opinion, one of the more important things that you need to learn as a homeschool mom. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified when all the next videos come out.